Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to do JMA Friday today, having a look at the weather coming month from the Japanese model, also have a look at the CFS V2 as well. So quite a lot going on. I'll just talk about the ads very quickly. There's links to articles on all the pages, scanforgos.com, have browsed through widgets, any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go for read the article. Thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads, so watch them if they appear. Thanks very much for doing that. Right, let's get on with the video. And we can see from the 5 of our high anomalies for the coming month, going from the 1st to the 8th of May, that we're going to have a trough of low pressure out in the Atlantic. So it's going to be an unsettled week, really coming up. The blue colours are there. Around British Isles and through the Atlantic, got a ridge going down to the south. The jet stream is going like that, so it's running through the country. It's going to be a relatively unsettled week. I think it will turn a bit warmer over the bank holiday weekend, but overall, a pretty unsettled start to May. But then as it goes through to the second weekly period, signs of a change. The yellow colours are building through the country, so that's the high pressure ridging in. And we saw this on the JMA update last week. JMA Friday last week showed this, a ridge of high pressure building through the country and going down to the south as well, with the low pressure stuck in the Atlantic and going off up to the north. The jet stream as well is going to the north with that, so we're going on to the milder side of the jet, or the warmer side of the jet, and we're under a ridge, so it would be relatively dry and settled conditions. The third and fourth weekly periods, going from the 15th to the 29th of May, shows that we've got a bit of a change taking place. A trough of low pressure is developing around Scandinavia and through the central part of the Atlantic. The jet stream goes like that. I think the ridge is probably getting squeezed northwards on this one, so overall, I would expect it turning more unsettled really for into the second half of May, and particularly perhaps for the final week of the month. I think eventually the two troughs in the Atlantic and to the east and the northeast will sort of get together as the ridge is squeezed up to the north. That's my suspicion of what's going on there. So it's a little bit difficult to decipher those week 3 and week 4 charts because the signal gets weaker. But I think overall, probably turning more unsettled through to the end of the month. The CFS V2, which was in agreement with the JMA last week in terms of building the ridge up from the southwest through the second week of the month, turning it drier and warmer. We see from 5 height anomalies broken down into week periods, going from the 30th of April through to the 6th of May. So for the coming week, that we've got agreement, both models agreeing that it's going to be unsettled with the green and blue colours through the country there. An unsettled week coming up, a ridge down to the south. And the jet stream is going through the country like that. So a pretty unsettled and cool period coming up. We go through to the second weekly period. And this is when the JMA is trying to build that ridge through the country. The CFS not doing it as much, so we haven't really got agreement there. I think it is a bit transitional. What's going on is that the low pressure is going centred more into the mid-Atlantic. Got some sort of a ridge building around Scandinavia, perhaps. And the ridge is still there to the southwest, but not really building up. I think the jet stream is probably going something like that. So it still is impacting the country. It's probably shifting more towards the north and the west. It's a weaker signal, certainly, from the JMA, but I think perhaps what it seems that it's a transitional period. So around the 7th, 8th of May, it's still quite unsettled, and then perhaps after the 10th, it begins to turn more settled as high pressure begins to ridge through. And then we see evidence of high pressure properly ridging through the third week period, going from the 14th to the 20th of May. Then we do have the ridge building up to the southwest with those orange and yellow colours. The trough is getting pushed up towards Greenland and Iceland, as the jet stream is going to the north of the country as well. So I think by that point, by the third week of May, we are probably back into proper sort of settled conditions. And then the final week, going from the 21st to the 27th, it's taking the ridge out towards the east of the country, so towards eastern parts of Europe. Bit of a low pressure coming back across Iceland. It's very difficult one to decipher that, but probably what's going on there is that gradually it's turning more unsettled. So I think we've got disagreements here between the JMA and the CFS this week. At this point, by the end of May, the JMA wants to place low pressure over Scandinavia, whereas the CFS wants to take that high pressure over to Scandinavia and eastern parts of Europe. Rather a lot of disagreements there, but I think the overall trend, cutting between all of the noise, if you like, the overall trend is more or less to start unsettled for May, to turn it gradually drier and warmer through the second and third weeks. And then sometime later in the month, perhaps through the third week, perhaps through the fourth week, we turn it cooler and more unsettled again. Quite how that change back to cooler, more unsettled conditions occurs, I'm not sure. But I think both models sort of hinting at that idea that eventually it does break down and return more unsettled. Could play out very similar to the way April has played out, actually, with a lot of dry weather through the middle part of the month and then more unsettled cooler at the end. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm doing the May month-ahead forecast probably on Bank Holiday Monday, so I'm going to have to come up with a forecast for the coming month very shortly. The temperature anomalies for the next month, these are broken down to week periods, so going from the 30th of April through to the 6th of May, shows up going to be solidly below average. There we are through the coming week, we're in those green colours, so it's going to be quite a cool week indeed. We go nearer normal through the second week of May. This is perhaps a transitional period from unsettled to more settled conditions, so perhaps lifting the temperatures up, but nothing to get excited about really. We go through to the next week, going from the 14th to 20th. This is a bit surprising. I expect this to be a bit warmer than this. We are perhaps going very slightly above average, but we're near normal really, and with which building up from the southwest and shoving the jet stream off towards the north of Scotland, I expect that to be a bit warmer than that, but it does depend how much the jet stream is sort of niggling back in. It's still bringing weather systems through, but obviously that will limit the temperature potential. Now let's go through to the 21st, 27th. This is rather odd because it's going cooler than average again. Not sure what's going on there. The high pressure, as we saw in the height anomaly, is going off towards eastern parts of Europe. We may be bringing the Atlantic back in, but it seems a bit odd that it would be going cooler than average. But if these are right, the way this is stacking up, it's certainly going to be a relatively cool May, really. Certainly not significantly above average. May come out about around average, maybe a little bit above or a little bit below, but nothing sort of dramatic going on there with the temperatures. No sign of really warm conditions. Now, having a look at the generic charts finally before I go, this is the GFS for the end of next week. This is a week's time, Friday the 8th of May. Remember yesterday we did a video and there was hints that high pressure could really build in through the second week of May. Sort of backing off that idea a bit now. I suppose that does tie in with what the CFS is telling us, that this transition to high pressure might not be all that straightforward. So here we are on the 8th of May, the GFS is showing the high pressure to be building through the country. It tries to hang around through to the weekend of the 9th, 10th of May, but it quickly gets pushed out actually, and as we go through to Monday the 11th, we're back into quite an unsettled Atlantic flow, and then what happens after that is that the high pressure has another go at building in. This is 276 hours away, so after that first attempt sort of ends in failure as the Atlantic comes back in, we get a second go at it, and that's perhaps a bit more successful. I think that's probably what the CFS is hinting at, what we're just seeing, that the transition towards higher pressure may not be straightforward. It may not be easy to break out of this unsettled pattern that we're currently in. Eventually it will probably get there, at least for a time, through the middle part of the month. The ECMWF shows that we've got high pressure trying to build in at the end of next week, but it's a failed attempt, and low pressure comes back through the country weekend of the 9th, 10th of May. But then we have another go at it, and by day 10 the high pressure is building in then, turning it drier and warmer. So I think the trends are still there to turn it drier and warmer through the second week of May. Going to be an unsettled start, of course. The coming week will be unsettled. We'll be looking at that in detail for the weekend forecast tomorrow. The second week is where all my attention is at the moment, because I think we will eventually turn it drier and warmer. But it's not going to be, I don't think, a straightforward transition. So expect a couple of failed goes at it before we finally get there. But by mid-month, I think we'll have some drier, warmer weather. That's it for now. Come back tomorrow for weekend forecast. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.